Hi guys, so basically today I'm going to be answering questions that I frequently get, I see frequently asked to other handlers about service dogs. I also want to say this video is not a tutorial on how to get a service dog, so if that's you, to get a service dog you have to have a disability that's diagnosed, and we're going to jump into all of that today. So if you want to know more about service dogs, according to the law, because I am going off the law for you guys, just keep on watching.
Ever since the day that you went away, you've been sending flowers to me, flowers today, flowers.
First off, the most obvious one is, what is a service dog? Under the ADA law, a service animal is defined as a dog that has been individually trained to do work or perform tasks for an individual with a disability. The tasks performed by the dog must be directly related to the person's disability. If I could speak English. So basically what that means is the dog, so if you have a dog for diabetes, it can't be trained for psychiatric reasons because that's not for your disability. So if you have diabetes, the dog needs to do tasks to diabetes. I don't really know any of that because I'm not diabetic. I've never trained a dog for diabetes. But for example, my psychiatric service dog has no idea what to do for a seizure because I don't have that. That's kind of what it falls onto. You can't have a service dog that doesn't help your disability because that's the whole point of a service dog. So the next question that a lot of people ask me is, what does do work or perform tasks mean? The dog must be trained to make a specific action when needed to assist a person with a disability. For someone that needs a service dog for seizures, they have to be trained to help with the seizures. I've also seen people, well, I haven't seen it, but I've heard of people that have dogs that will help them go get their medicine, which is like at work for them, or for my service dog, she helps me with panic attacks, stuff like that. That's doing a task. So a lot of people ask, what's the difference between emotional support animal, service dog, and a therapy dog? So emotional support animal is not trained to perform tasks. I think the definition's in here. They have not been trained to perform a specific job or task. They do not qualify as a service animal under the ADA. So an emotional support animal is there just as emotional support, which a lot of people confuse psychiatric dogs to emotional support. The difference between a psychiatric service dog is that a psychiatric service dog is trained to do a task to help with it, whereas emotional support animal is there for support. They're not trained, yes, sure, obedience wise, but they are not trained to perform a task. I say the word task a lot. Okay. Another thing that defines emotional support between service dogs have public access rights, whereas emotional support animals don't. Yes, they are allowed to fly on a plane with you and allowed in non-friendly or non-pet friendly apartments, but they are not allowed to go to Walmart with you. With therapy dogs, they're different. They are trained to help people, but it's not one person with a disability, it's like a group. They typically are seen to go to hospitals or just public events that involve a lot of people that may need a therapy dog. So the next one is a question that I really hate. A lot of people with psychiatric service dogs may get this too. Basically, people will come up and say, oh, you have a service dog for anxiety? Well, I have anxiety, so I must be allowed to have one too. Incorrect. Someone's dog calms when having an anxiety attack doesn't qualify as a service dog. That's the question on here. The ADA makes a distinction between psychiatric service animals and emotional support animals. If the dog has been trained to sense that a panic attack is about to happen or take a specific action to help avoid the attack or lessen its impact, that would qualify as a service dog. However, if the dog provides comfort, that would not be considered a service animal. So basically, emotional support isn't there to necessarily tell you when a panic attack is coming, consider it alerting. They're just there to kind of be there for you if you need it. Another question I get a lot because I owner train my dog is, does ADA require service animals to be professionally trained? No, people with disabilities have the right to train the dog themselves and are not required to use a professional service dog training program. This is where people will just take their dogs wherever because they're like, oh, well, it doesn't have to be professional trained. It still has to be trained. This bugs me so much because yes, it helps us that have disabilities that can't afford a program dog to be able to train our dogs ourselves because the expense is different, obviously. But no, it doesn't have to be trained. Yes, you can go that route, and I'm sure that route is beneficial to other people. For me, it has worked out. A lot of us that train our dogs ourselves get a lot of backlash because, we're not professionally trained ourselves to train dogs. You don't have to be with a trainer to have a service dog. So the next one is, what are the two questions that you're allowed to ask a service dog? And one is that, is the dog a service dog required because of a disability? You answer yes or no. And two, what work or task is the dog trained to perform? It's Staff are not allowed to request any documentation for the dog, require the dog demonstrate its task, or inquire about the nature of the person's disability. Basically, that means that they can't ask for an ID, they can't ask for a certification, they can't ask for any of that because you don't need it. They also cannot ask you to make the dog do a task because, for obvious reasons, if you don't need it to do a task, let's not make it do the task. They also cannot ask what kind of disability you have. That one I get a lot by people, and you can technically sue for that because you're not allowed to ask that. It's under law. Don't do it. Don't ask it. Another one, you see a lot of handlers that have a bunch of vests and patches saying like service dog and training, whatever. Do service animals have to wear a vest or patch for special awareness identifying them as a service animal? No, the ADA does not require service animals to wear a vest, ID tag, or specific harness. I do wear a vest on my dog. The only reason I do is just because it clarifies that she's a service dog. Not that it does anything for people, but makes me feel better. But you can go anywhere and you could have them on just a leash. I know there are times where I do just have her on a collar because it is hot outside, and having a heavy vest, I don't have just like a harness. So until I get a harness, I just have her walk outside. Can hotels charge a cleaning fee for guests who have service animals? No, hotels are not permitted to charge guests for cleaning the hair or dander shed by a service animal. The only thing really hotels can do is if your dog does damage something, they charge you just as if everybody else. But yes, you can take your service dog, and I also believe emotional support animal, but that'd be a whole separate video on emotional support animals. Another question is, does a hospital have to allow an inpatient with a disability to keep a service dog in his or her room? Generally, yes. Service animals must be allowed in a patient room, and anywhere else in the hospital, the public and patients are allowed to go. They cannot be excluded on the grounds that staff can provide the same services. The biggest thing with hospitals, like, yes, your service dog is allowed to be there, but if you can't take care of it, you need to take arrangements to have someone either take care of it or take it back home, because, you know, it is what it is. They're there to help you. They're not there to take care of your dog. And I know a lot of people might come at me for that, but that is what it is. Must a service animal be allowed to ride in an ambulance with its handler? Generally, yes. However, the space in the ambulance is crowded and the dog's pressure would interfere with the emergency medical staff's ability to treat the patient. Staff would make other arrangements to get the dog to the hospital. So basically, you can have it unless it's in the way, which can happen. So here's the biggest question everybody loves to ask is, does the ADA require service animals to be certified as a service dog? No. Covered injuries may not require documentation, such as proof that the animal has been certified, trained, or licensed as a service animal as condition for entry. Basically, the only kind of like certification you need is your dog does need to be licensed as a dog, depending on the state. For my state, dogs have to be licensed, but you don't need to be licensed as a service dog, just as a dog. Can a service animal be any breed of dog? Yes, there is no restriction on the breed. You just have to take an accommodation of that breed. Basically, under ADA law, place can't come, like if you go to a restaurant, they can't come up to you and say you can't have that dog because it's a German Shepherd. They cannot say that. If it's a service dog, it's a service dog. Doesn't matter whatever breed. When can a service animal be excluded? Basically, the only time a service dog can be kicked out is if it's not behaving as a service dog, obviously. So if you're in a place, in a restaurant, and the dog is begging for the food, if the dog is eating the food that you're eating, which is incorrect, if the dog is barking, if it's growling at people, any of that, they have the right to tell you to leave because it's not being a service dog. If the dog is sitting there being well, not doing anything, then they can't just kick you out because you have a service dog. That is basically it. It needs to have general manners, general public manners. That's why you train them. That's why it has to be a trained dog. So those are all the questions that I found on that list. If you guys have any more, just leave them down below and I will make a part 2 to this if you guys want it. And if you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. It means a lot to me. Also feel free to hit that subscribe button if you want to see me and my dog, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.